Hello, and welcome to the Biomass Magazine podcast. I'm your host, Anna Simet. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we're continuing our panel preview series for the International Biomass Conference and Expo, which is being held in Atlanta, March 18th through the 20th. And for these podcasts, we're chatting with some of our speakers to give our listeners kind of a sneak peek of the presentations we have coming to the show. And so today, I have with me Ron Pagel, Senior Project Manager at Pond & Company. And Ron is speaking on the Sustainable Aviation Fuel track, which is new this year. Ron, welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So first off, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself and Pond & Company, and then what's been keeping you guys busy lately?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. My background, I'm a biochemical engineer with a track in toxicology and virology, which is an interesting aspect to get into transportation fuel.
That's cool.
But it's always been in the mostly in the distillation and the digestion business, which has led us into the fueling aspect. And Pond & Company has been a fuel company since its inception in the early 60s, mostly working for the military in the fueling business, designing fuel systems for the military and the government around the world. I actually work for our industrial division, and we do the production of, or our energy group does the transportation of the fuels. So we're working currently with a significant number of dairy digester sites around the world in RNG. We're also doing a bunch of landfill gas applications, and also, and this is where this talk will go to, is the application of transportation fuel, drop-in fuels, essentially like SAF, or DME, or any other transportation fuel from primarily waste biomass. And that's the aspect of looking at what is more sustainable. If I'm going to grow and produce vegetable oil, for instance, I could certainly make biodiesel or kerosene or SAF from those aspects. And there are some limitations to that. And those are the key parts of what is efficient. But SAF is our target, and primarily using waste material to produce SAF without some of the limitations.
Okay, gotcha. So your presentation, it's titled A Pathway to Success from Feedstock to a Multitude of Renewable Co-Products. Let's say you just have this mountain of waste biomass. Ron, what are the questions that you need to answer, or kind of the checklist items to address in terms of where to go from there that you'll hit on during your talk?
Good question. And the first thing we always ask our developers and or teams that are looking to do a project, and they may or may not know how to do that, but we'll ask, what is it that you want to make? And then we can help determine some of those pathways, because there's a few. But what is the end result? And if it's a single source end result, the caution is, what if the market changes before you get to production? Is there multiple things that you can make from that waste product? And furthermore, back upstream, what is your feedstock cost? In some cases, the feedstock you get paid to take if it's truly a waste, or at least you're not paying for the material. So if you bought fresh wood chips, you'd be paying for it. Or if it was green waste coming off a municipal market, they may pay you to take it. So it's a difference in your pro forma of how the feedstock costs are in transportation and all those aspects. So we look at what the feedstock is, what it's going to do, what co-products come out of it, and ultimately what quality of the product you're trying to make to fit. If you don't have an offtake agreement, it's a bit of a chase. So starting with that, knowing that you have a customer for the materials you're going to make.
Okay. So what about SAF? What about SAF considerations specifically?
Well, it's a growing market, obviously, because the airline industry has signed on to use as much SAF as they can purchase. Well, there isn't a lot in the market yet, but what is in the market is largely made from, vegetable oil or other means, which is fine, but it's just still the answer is this a new aspect? Well, there's almost 1 million commercial flights that have been operating using SAF, so it's not a new entity. the sustainable fuel market is growing, and that there is more of a demand than there is production. So that's part of the answer, is finding methods and means to produce the SAF at the quality that's required for the volume required by the airlines to meet their sustainable goals as well.
Okay, great answer. So one of your focus points during your presentation will also be completing a project on time, meeting process goals, and on budget. But how is this achieved, and what are some of the major points that you're going to hit on to achieve goals?
Yeah, that's a good question. The answer is walking through a production schedule from concept through engineering, through all of the checks and balances that happen during the cycle, with everyone as a stakeholder having their input. Meaning that if I don't have regulatory, if I don't have finance, if I don't have operations, and certainly if I don't have quality embedded into that check and balance system, any of those things can completely waylay us, particularly regulatory, air permitting, and things like that. So all of those properly balanced in a schedule that we manage to get everybody on board at the right time to hit those targets, so that we do not have delays. And so it's a reasonable schedule, meaning that we can do it in the time frame we say we can. What is the long lead items, for instance, the procurement of hardware, and then identifying those long lead items as early as we can so that they are not a delay to the project. Because of supply chain issues that we've had over the last couple of years, some hardware was very hard to get, and it's coming back. Electrical gear primarily, where we were seeing over a year's lead time on some electrical gear. It's now less, but it's still significant, where we need to identify those things to make sure that we have not only the technology choices, but the hardware, the capital equipment necessary to achieve our goals. So that helps us stay on track.
Okay. So let's shift a bit. What about the co-products aspects of your talk? What are you going to focus on there?
Well, one thing that with co-products is, especially with waste material, is there's things within the waste market that we may or may not need in our final product. So they're either a liability, meaning I have to pay to get rid of them, or they're a problem, or I can collect them, refine them, and use them as an additional product or a revenue stream. For instance, if I'm consuming or gasifying or pyrolysis producing to produce a syngas to make SAF, in the case, for my example, you're going to produce ash or other components, maybe biochar, but if those things can be determined as co-products, for instance, the ash largely can go into the concrete market or road base or things like that. So what is the process flow for the chosen feedstock, and which co-products are going to come out of that? So that's part of our mass balance, understanding the breakdown of the feedstock into its components. What is it that we want to take forward as syngas or something that's going to be converted into an aviation fuel, and what are the waste products in that process?
All right, gotcha. So, Ron, this has given us a really great snapshot of what to expect from your presentation, but we don't want to give away too much. Is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap it up?
One of the things with the market, the SAF market, is the quality has to be there. A transportation fuel is one of those things that is, there aren't really any second chances. So the regulatory and the testing agencies like ASTM are on board with this. So once we have a fuel that meets that standard, it'll meet that standard. The biodiesel market fell into that aspect some time ago, and now it's well established, as was the ethanol market. So what does it do to engines and things like that? So that has to be well understood and create that comfort level if we're producing a fuel, that it's a fuel that the airline industry can trust, not only by volume, but by its quality. So those things that are part of that aspect, we have to make sure that we're hitting those questions for the industry so that they would be accepted.
Great point. Well, thank you so much, Ron, for coming on the podcast, and I sure look forward to your presentation.
Well, thank you so very much. We look forward to seeing everybody in Atlanta.
Yeah, absolutely. To our listeners, catch Ron's presentation on Wednesday, March 19th on panel From Concept to Commercial Operations, Achieving Project Success. Learn more and register at biomassconference.com. Those who meet certain biomass energy producer criteria get in free. And with that, we will wrap it up. Thanks all for tuning in. We really hope to see you at the show. Until next time.